just want to add this, that time also when you get married, you had to look for somebody that's got a medical aid and is going to get the house.
Oh my word! It's the
So, you
first
know,
time I hear
It
this.
came with perks. So yeah.
Okay, we met many years ago. She was a young girl. Aunt was married to my cousin. I think I was about 13, 14 years old. You were about 12.
Well, yeah. I think I was, we were still at primary. I remember I was still at primary school. And then, like you said, my aunt was married to his cousin, and because we lived in Heidelberg and they lived in Pontieville. So there was that footbridge over the N2. So we used to, I will walk with her, you help her with the child with the pram, and then you will meet on the other side of the bridge, yeah. And then I think that is how we came, get to know each other, yeah.
But I think the big thing for me, I don't know if she had eyes for me then, but I had eyes for her, because my sister reminded me that in the backyard in Pontieville where we used to stay, on the wall I wrote Ferlon loved Debbie at 12, 13 years old. So I was in love, she didn't know about it. And then they moved to Mitchell's Plain.
Yes.
And I didn't see her for some years.
Yes.
And then one day I went to Mitchell's Plain. Now again, I mean, this is probably how God works, because there's no coincidence in this. Because my cousin was staying next to her uncle. And I came to visit my uncle. And suddenly, she was there. And I saw her, and I had a friend with me. And I said to my friend, Leon, I'm going to marry this girl. Well, I think that the one thing that I want to say from the onset is that, those days you got married and no big halls, just in, a tent, no big, ceremonies. There's no money for that. She still teases me when she says, we needed cool drink for the wedding.
Special cool drink.
And you then had to take of your money, and I didn't have the money to buy the back. But that is just how we started. Very small, very simple, nothing, And the first thing we went to go stay a couple of months at your mother, and then
3 months, yes.
I then applied for my subsidy at the council, law enforcement officer. 6 months. We had a house, and we had our first house, 2-bedroom, in Portland's Mitchell's Plain. And we stayed there for about 10 years before we went to Goodwood.
I just want to add this, that time also when you get married, you had to look for somebody that's got a medical aid and is going to get the house.
Oh my word! It's the first time I hear this.
It came with perks. So yeah.
So we moved to Mitchell's Plain, and in Mitchell's Plain, my 2 children were born, Marvin and Brandon. And one day, I don't know if you know, I think you know, the one day I came out with Marvin, and we walked, I think, to the shop, and suddenly a stray bullet went past us. And I said to her, we're moving. We're not going to stay here any longer, because I want my children to live in a safe environment, So safety was very important to me as a protector and as a family man. And then we moved to Goodwood.
Yeah.
We then moved from Goodwood. We were there for 5 years.
5 years, 5, 6
and
years.
And then we moved to here, where we are now. This is our 19th year or something that we are here.
Yeah.
19th, next year will be 20 years that we're here.
Yeah.
March, we 20 years. So I think that the important thing for us as a family, we've grown together. Our children went to good schools, good universities. That is what, because I never had that.
Yeah.
I never had that. She never had that, and that was she worked, she worked hard, I worked hard in order to make sure that our children get the best education. And then we went through some tough times where I made decisions. Sometimes as a man, you make decisions. I just felt, the Lord calling me to do some different stuff. And the one time I got the offer, when I decided to leave the ID and decided to leave we had a problem at the ID, and they then offered me, either to go as a counselor or to leave, and I decided to leave. And then I had to sit here as a family. We sat down, and Brandon will always say, Daddy, I think you went through a midlife crisis. Because we're sitting, I'll remember Marvin and Brandon, and the one day, I don't know if you can remember the one day that Marvin was crying. And you said, but you can't let the children go through this, But for me, it was important, whatever I'm going to do, I must know that is where God wants me to be at. So that's why I went 3 years or so into full-time ministry, in Mannenberg. And you remember the first service we had in the school hall, the first service we had. So, of course, there was nothing there. It was just a school hall.
Yeah,
and you still took your credit card to buy the projectors and stuff and the food, because we had about 50 people when we opened the church. And she then I didn't have money because now
there was nothing
in from my side, so I left. And now she had to provide, and she provided for the food, the drinks, the snacks, and the projector, and she bought that on the credit card, and with the hope that I'll pay it back. Did I ever pay it back?
No, but yeah, it was a new beginning, because he went into ministry. So I can't expect him, that is at least what I can do. That is how I support him in that small manner.
But can I just say this quickly before that? Can you remember? I don't say this. I had 3 offers from 3 churches. Can you remember? No, I don't say that's important, because I had an offer from Harfield Assemblies of God, I had an offer from Jesus First Ministries and Mannenberg. And the Jesus First Ministries offered me 10,000 rand, and I said no to that, to go to Mannenberg where I received no salary. Because I was so strong that was the will of God. Hey, do you want to share some light on that?
I can go through that. The time when he was at home, and then he was one day when I came home, and then he was on his knees. He was on his knees praying, and for me it was like, you're praying, you need to get a job. You're just praying without understanding the journey that he's on. For me, it was a survival thing. You work, you provide. We have 2 children. He's the head of the house. He's the example. He's the first man in their lives, so he needs to set an example. So how are they going to look at him? I saw it from that point of view, because it's our duty as parents to protect our children. You need to give them, you save them from emotion, from all the things that they're not ready, they're not prepared for that. But you know what? I saw the faith of my 2 boys that time. I saw the faith, because for me it was, like I say, it was an ongoing thing, survival. And at that time also, it wasn't going well at work. It wasn't going well at work. So what do you do now? You got to see to a roof, you got to provide for food, you have 2 cars. So how do you come through this? And I never knew. For me, being disobedient, not to being faithful in that sense of also praying, because you don't think of that really. You have a man here, and you're angry because what's happening, and my children, and then and I never knew God was going to use me just so. I'm getting cultures here. And I never knew God was going to use these 2 hands. He really blessed me. God blessed me with these 2 hands, because what I touched, it's, people used to say that I can sell ice, but I never knew that was my gift. And then I realized I just used to do it for fun. It's most lekker, to work with people. That is my passion. People. I love people. I love the interaction of people. But I never knew that was my gift. And that was my purpose. And I saw it that time. And I just kept running. And God really came through for me. My faith grew that time. And Ferlon is a strong believer of fasting and praying. And I didn't know that through my marriage. He was always just the one, And I also got to learn how to do that. And that is how we come through our circumstances. And that is how we break chains, through fasting and praying. And that is what my husband did. And just so God opened doors for us. I never believed that people will just come and give you money just like that. And when it took me 100, 200, 3,000, thousands. Because it doesn't happen. And in this reality, it doesn't happen. Who will give? You know
10,000.
what? 10,000 and more. He had a car. I had my learners that time. He gave the car away. I was so upset he gave it away because he was obedient to God's word. God told him to give your car away and he gave it away. Soos 'n mense lekker weggeen. And I'm upset because, I've got learners and you know what? And then he had his first car, his first BM. He always wanted a BM. And that is how that journey, to go through it roughly. But I tell you, faith really brought us through.
Yeah.
I was born in Portland, Mitchells Plain. Stayed there for a couple of years, and then obviously we moved to Goodwood, and that was quite a big shift. We, particularly myself, when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time. When my brother was at school, I was at creche, my folks were at work. Then I would spend a lot of time with my mom's mother and my cousins there. So that was an interesting shift to move. You were there, and I've got very few memories of Mitchells Plain. I mean, I moved out there when I was, I think, 4 or 5, and then coming into this new environment in Goodwood was quite something. We were away from our family. We wouldn't see our extended family as often, so we would only see them, in holidays or if they would come through whatever. But I knew from that age already that we were positioned for greatness, because of what already our parents had to do to get us to that point. Things like discipline, values like hard work, those were instrumental in getting us to where we are today. Again, even from sports, the aspect of our dad reading books, kind of like there's this new movie now called King Richard, where Will Smith is playing the dad of Venus and Serena Williams. And he was the one that taught them how to. And what would my dad do? My dad, if you look at our bookshelf, you can see the books on athletics training. We would do these drills. Sometimes we would train 3 times a day in school holidays. My brother was there, I was there. We had one cousin that joined us once. Then we had another cousin that joined us. And I remember one of the occasions, he wasn't moving around the track as fast as he should have been. And here we see my dad come to this thing, and I don't know move, run, and he's chasing us with this. But that was to get us to work hard, because success and making something of your life, hard work is only one aspect of it, but it's disciplined hard work, it's focused hard work. Those are the kind of things I think we were taught from a young age, whether it's in your schoolwork, whether it's in your sport, whether it's whatever. Because and maybe something Marvin wants to touch on.
Like Brandon said, growing up with a sporting background, our father played a big role in helping us get to where we are today. But most of what we depend on today in terms of characteristics was shaped as we grew up, through sport. So our father was also our trainer. He was our everything when it comes to, If you look at sport today, they've got multiple people in the corner. We only had one person in our corner that substituted all the many roles, and those things that we learned then, it wasn't always about winning, it was always about just give your best, because when you give your best is usually the winning recipe. And we pursued a lot of different sports, and we excelled in all of them because that was the foundation, that we always gave our best. And we didn't always have the best equipment, we didn't always have when we had to go to places, people would come there at their own luxury. We had to use public transport, we had to, it wasn't. And I remember, so as you get older, we were using the train to get from Goodwood to Rondebosch, and I now needed to take the train on my own back. And my mother, I clearly remember, said to me, and my father said, all you must do is just take a Bellville train, because Bellville must pass Monte Vista, or it must pass Goodwood. But you listen. And so I got to the station and I looked up and I saw, okay, it says Bellville South, and you assumed it's Bellville. And you get onto the train, and now you don't usually see the same people that's on the train, because it's different people now. And we're sitting and the train sort of goes, and now you start to get worried because the stations are not familiar at all. So I got to Langa and I realized, listen, it looks like I'm getting further and further from home, so I need to probably get off here. And I didn't know the distance from Langa to Goodwood, so I jumped off there and ran all the way home. And my father was waiting for me at Goodwood station. So I remember him always telling the story, and he stood and he just heard this voice behind him, Daddy. And I ran from there to there. So it wasn't the best of, it wasn't, you get picked up at 5 and dropped off. You had to make your own way. So like Brandon said, we got dropped off so we would wake up at about 5:30. So now I sleep late because I'm making up for those days, because we woke up at 5:30 to get onto the train to Cape Town, from Cape Town to Rondebosch. Then my father takes the train back from Rondebosch to Cape Town to work. In the afternoon, from Cape Town back to Rondebosch to pick us up, back to home, and that was about a good few years. So we understand hard work, we understand sacrifice, we understand that nothing comes easy, and if it comes easy, it's probably not going to last. So we pursued those foundational lessons into everything else. So now today, as a father, you understand that you're willing to go through any lengths. And when we speak about our father, we'll always look at, many fathers tell children what to do. So they'll tell you, do this thing, do that thing. But for us, it was very different, because we didn't get told what to do, we got shown what to do. And if we look at it today, when I look at my children, I realize, listen, they don't do what I say, they do what I do, because I'm doing what my father did. I'm not doing what he necessarily said. So it's very important, the things that we learned growing up, that we actually depend on those today to make sure that we run, successful homes, successful marriages, successful businesses, successful relationships, because the foundation, the forms are different, but the principles are all the same. So growing up, it was, a massive shape, a molding point for us to where we are today. And it's easy, like I said, we don't have to think, oh, he said this. You have those memories of, he did this, he did that, she did this, she did that. So really, it makes it easier growing up instead of tougher. And many of the barriers that previous generations couldn't break, we're fortunate enough to have parents that broke it. So not only now do we realize we need to run faster, we need to jump higher, we need to do a lot more in the short period that we have on earth. So we're very fortunate in that aspect, because if we look at children today or youth today, you don't have that person. So you try and find someone to substitute and play that role. And unfortunately, if it's not a positive influence, you don't know. So you still go and model that, and you get the same results. So we model what we were taught and what we grew up with. And if we look at the results today, the results proves that what we were taught is correct.
Yeah, I'm very appreciative of, did I say that word right? Appreciative towards my wife for being there and standing in the gap, I would say. You know, when you know that you're called to do something in life, when you're called to do something in life, and you pursue that. I was in a steady job as assistant director in the Department of Local Government. I was in a steady job when it comes to law enforcement. So most of my friends, they are law enforcement officers still today, and they're waiting for pension. Most of my friends have either retired or are in government, and they wait for retirement. For me, it was different. So I left that in order to look at what has God called me to do. And that's why I went through that journey, and I went through that journey with an enormous financial dip. Because for me, it was important, what did God call me to do? And fortunately, I had a wife who did extra work, who did extra to get the income. And she covered all the debt, because when I went to go work in Manenberg, there was no income. And I just needed a wife to understand that this journey that we're on is temporary. When I step into purpose, it's going to turn everything around. And I don't know if I must say this, but I'm going to say this, that it was so tough. And I looked her in the eye and I said, Debbie, you can do anything, but please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Because if I lost my wife in this journey that I'm on, I would have lost it, because I could not do it without her. So pursuing my dreams, pursuing where I want to be, it was never about the money. It was never about anything. It's what God has called me to do. And I know working with people, empowering people, assisting people, that is what I must do. I must empower, I must assist, I must help. And today I've got a lot of skills, and I want to plow back. And politics gives me that opportunity to plow back, to help. So 2009, we went through that stage where we have lack. I mean, I was laughing with Marvin. We were renting a school hall for church, and there was one guy that came to church every week. He gave 50 rand tithes, and then at the end of the month, our rent was 200 rand. So that just covered the rent. No other money. Now where is my money that I must come and pay a bond? No, wife had to cover all of that. And so it was never about the money for me. And then 2011, when I joined the ACDP, it was never, I never had it. I was just obedient to what God has called me to do. I didn't say, I want to be a counselor. I want to be the medal candidate. That was out of my head. All that I did was, I was obedient to God. That's all. So I had to say no to a church that offered me 10,000 rand a month to go work in Manenberg with no money. And when I was shocked, but I think God showed me then that if you pursue me, you do the right thing, I will look after you. And that is, I believe, what happened. So when I was a male candidate 2011, and I was sworn in as a counselor, I think it was June month. For the first time, I had a decent salary. For the first time, I could pay the bond and say, wife, here's something for you. For the first time ever, I could say, children, here's something for you. So it turned, everything turned, being obedient to to what God has called me to do. Nothing else. So I cannot take and say, listen, I've done it. I cannot take the credit and say, I've done it. I must give all the praise to a family that supported me, a wife that was there, but also to a God that's faithful. A God that's faithful. So when God came through for us, counselor, I can't remember what I have earned then, but it was enough money to provide for all of us and even help other people. And today I'm in a position where I can provide for my family, but also provide for others. So now if somebody's in need, they phone me. I can assist. I can help, because that is what I believe God has called us to, bless others. And that's why I want to be in a position when and I believe it's the mayor of Cape Town, that I know what it is to be in difficulty, but I also know what it is to have and to give to others. So that is where I'm at. God has really just come through for us as a family, and we give Him all the glory. And as my children said, even they now can excel in life because of the stance I took. I could have decided not to be obedient to the Word of God and not be obedient to the will of God by staying a law enforcement officer. I would have been secured, medical aid, what you were looking for, medical aid, housing subsidy. I could have stayed assistant director in government, medical aid, housing subsidy, big pension. I would have been bored and frustrated, and I would have not have the opportunity to serve the people of Cape Town. I'm now serving the people of the Western Cape, serving the people in Cape Town. And I will always serve the people, because that is what God has called me, to serve the people, to be a servant leader. And that is who I am. I want to serve and make sure when I'm no longer here that our people is better off. Those people sitting in houses, waiting for houses for 30 years. I want to see that it will never happen under my leadership, under my mayorship.